everyone. Hi, this is Mita. It's Mita speaking, your astrology journalist, because I break the news before the news even happen. Astrologically, this is what I do. I analyze charts, but I also predict. I predict what's happened in the past. I tell you what is happening right now, and I predict the future. And it doesn't matter how long it's been or how long it will be. That's what I'm able to do. I do specialize in Synastry, which is a study of astrology or in astrology that looks at relationships and how people relate to each other. And of course, also how states relate to each other, as I've been doing as well. And today, we are looking at the relationship of Israel and Philistine, which is Palestine in today's language, right? So I briefly spoke about this issue or this topic yesterday, and I explained that the war that has been going on between Israel and Philistine has been going on for many years. 1988 it was already happening, and before 1988 it was already here. So 1988 marks a point of independence of Philistine, the state of Philistine, and on the 15th of November. So this is the date that we are using as the birth date for the state of Philistine. And for Israel, we are using 1948 because the state of Israel was re-established in 1948. So my channel is Shadowband, allegedly. So I know this topic may even make it even more shadowband, but this is a topic that is interesting to me to look at astrologically. So if I feel like I need to look at something astrologically, I do it, regardless of the being overshadowed or overbanned or shadow banned on this tube. Allegedly, everything is alleged, by the way. Everything's alleged. This is what I'm going to be doing here is a speculation based on astrology, and as we know that in our world, there are types of sciences that are accepted as true sciences, and astrology is not accepted, by the powers as a true form of science. So I must use the word allegedly, to safeguard your opinions or your state of receiving the news. Now, let's begin with the history. This is, by the way, part 1 of this astrological analysis between Israel and Philistine, because it has been a conflict that has been going on for centuries. It deserves to be analyzed in a serious manner and in different parts, so that I don't, just misuse the time or the opportunity to talk about this. So, with that said, if you are listening to this in your original language, possibly not English, then just know that YouTube translates what we say into different languages to make it easy for people to listen using AI. However, if you are hearing this in English, then this is my voice. This is me speaking directly, right? I must mention that this is an astrology-based documentary, and some people don't believe in astrology. However, I think that the history could be useful to learn or to know of how these states came about and how they came into this debacle that they're in today. And of course, I will be looking at the astrology later on in the video to analyze, because that's what we do on this channel. And I do invite you to open up your mind. I am a person who is spiritual but not religious. That means I'm open to knowing about different religions. I read different religious books to find out how people think and why they think, what they believe in, why they believe in that. So I am making this astrology documentary from a very open-minded set, whereby I am objective. I will be objective because I do not take sides in this part in terms of the religious views that are also included in this war. Now, from a point of the legal basis and the justice basis, of course, we all believe that what is fair should be fair. Where there's injustice, it should be corrected, and whoever needs to be freed must be freed, and whoever needs to be saved must be saved, right? We believe in justice like everybody else, right? So with that said, I would also like to obviously invite you to not be rude in the comments. So like when I made a video of Israel and Iran, there were rude people, and you can view your opinion about something without being rude, because we all adults and there's no necessity to just be rude, right? I mean, we adults, we can just have disagreeing views and everybody's fine with that. We are all, and we should be all open to other people's opinions that are different from us. But of course, with these manners, then I mean, come on, we need to just be observant of our behavior and how we come into debates, because these are also forms of debate, right? Because it's a long history, I am going to speak in summaries. I am not going to make things so detailed. However, on the screen, I'm going to share some of the history in order to help the viewer or you, the audience, understand what I'm talking about. But in my speech, I'm going to be summarizing the history and where this comes from. Now, we have to start from the beginning when we talk about Palestine and Israel. It is important every time, actually, when we talk about the Middle East, we must go back to the original scriptures or to the original religious books, because as I had said before in my analysis of Israel and Iran, when it comes to this region, these are not fights or wars that are new, that are coming out of the blue. These are ancestral wars. These are wars that have a long lineage, a long history over centuries, that goes over centuries and centuries ago. Now, from the scriptures, we do know that different scriptures, I mean, you can take the Quran, you will get what I'm talking about. You can take the Torah. Actually, the Torah and the Bible, they have the same Old Testament. So there's not a lot of difference there. There are minor differences, but not a lot. But there's the Old Testament. And when it comes to the Quran mentions most of these things, but as from a point of emphasizing spirituality rather than the lineage or the the bloodlines and all of these things. So, and then of course, when it comes to other books which are not Abrahamic books, like the Babylonian, like the Babylonian scripts and the Egyptian scripts, the old scripts, they do mention these things, right? So these are very important to look at. By the way, those are cats that are fighting, and they are definitely saying things. So they may be holding messages from the past, because as we know, cats, they represent the nodes, right? The Rahu, whereas the dogs, they represent the Ketu. So the nodes, they know things. And at this time, it is, 4:30 in the morning, so it's normal, But anyway, going back to the history. According to the scriptures, the beginning, of course, was all in Africa, right? But remember, Africa, Middle East were one. Back in the day, these were all one region. There was no Africa, these Middle East, because the word Middle East is new. It came after, I think, after the World War II or the World War One, right? So, as I said, I'm going to speak in summaries, and then I'm going to include the notes, because I don't want to dwell too much on the historic facts or details in so specific. These cats outside are actually taking my attention. But anyway, let's continue. Now, as we know, according to the scriptures, everything happened in Africa, the Middle East, the Kush. They were all one. It was not like word Africa, right? They had original names like Mesopotamia, but then Egypt, like the name Egypt remained Egypt. Palestine was Philistine at the time. We still had Jerusalem as Jerusalem. So many of the countries, they retained their original God-given names, so to speak, whereas some were changed due to political influences. Because we must remember, as I said in the beginning, that everything relating to what we see or even religion is politically influenced. But back then, the politics were more, nuanced, more power structured, with kingdoms and kings, and but nowadays our kings and our kingdoms are in the form of presidents and parliaments, right? But back in the day, it was like the kingdoms. There's a king and there's a queen, there's a structure that must be revered, right? And so it is also important to note that everybody back in the day who led their people, out of a country, immigrated. There was a lot of immigration back in the day, lots and lots of immigration. So they would immigrate from one country into another country and seize the land And in seizing the land, there was always a message. If you read the scriptures and the history, as I always say, use the Bible or the Quran or the Torah as your history book, because it has all the details of why things are happening today. Now, for some reason, all these political leaders from back in the day, like the kings and the regimes that led people, they had one message, we are the chosen one. Oh, I'm the chosen one by God. We are the chosen people. We are special. We deserve the land. The land is ours because God chose us, right? It is not only the story of Israel, as many people say, because the story of Israel being the chosen people, it is widely known, globally known, because of the marketing, right? Because we must remember when the Romans won, their empire won over the Greeks, then they started to have a lot of power in terms of marketing, in terms of financing the message that they wanted to send, in terms of financing the religion that they wanted to highlight to people. And of course, then, because they had the finances, they financed the Bible, and they translated the Bible into 1,000 and something different languages, and then they sent it out throughout the world. And they had missionaries who went with this Bible, as the chosen book, the chosen people, the chosen everything, right? Because of their marketing. Now, as we know in our world today, marketing is number one thing that every company focuses on to set themselves as the best, as selling the best product, as being the best company, or being the best of the everybody, even the government bodies, they have marketing departments whereby they market themselves as the best country for this, for tourism. Come to us for tourism, come to us for tech, because everyone understands marketing. But the Romans understood it from the beginning. They were the geniuses of marketing. They knew that in order for our empire to stay longer and to rule for longer, we need to position ourselves. In marketing, we call it positioning. We need to position ourselves as the best, and our religion and our king, and our they had scholars. These guys, they had scholars who wrote the books and translated all of these things. And of course, with the kingdoms, each king then would choose which scriptures fit best for their political agenda at the time. Because if we remember from the history, before the King James Bible version, there was another version of the Bible, and from that, the King James, the King James, who was called James, he came in and then he restructured everything allegedly, according to his political stance at the time, and what he wanted to send out as an order at the time. And then it was renamed into a King James Bible. And so, everybody else, got to be told, this is the best book, this is the best God, these are the chosen people. Everybody else is not chosen, everybody else is less than, all right? But then it is not only Israel. This is what I want to highlight. Why do I say that? Because if you go back to your history, even when there was a takeover of Babylon by the Persian king. The Persian king came in Babylon and said, I'm the chosen one for Babylon, to restructure Babylon. I'm the chosen one. We will restructure Babylon. We will put the laws, rebuild the temple, because he also believed that he was the chosen one. And therefore, this is how Babylon was destroyed or lost to the Persian king. I think his name was Nebuchadnezzar, and then he took over. No, Nebuchadnezzar was from Babylon, and then he's the one who made hostage. He made hostage of some people, a lot of people, right? So, oh my gosh, there was a lot of war even back then, slavery, immigration, taking over the land, claiming that you are the chosen one for the land, whether you are owning the land or not, you have the right to the land or not. If you just had the message that I'm the chosen one, and then you had people who believed in that and who voted for you and said, yeah, he's the chosen one. You could go out and just take any house you want, because you can just come in and say, hey, the Lord told me I'm the chosen one. Your house is my house now. Give it to me. Right? So it was always like that. So we must not fault Israel and say, okay, why are they saying they're the chosen ones? Why are they saying they deserve the land that they never owned? Right? It was always like that for everyone. All the governments did this back in the day. The Persians did it to the Babylonians. The Israelites are coming back to the Philistines to the Philistines. Like it was I don't know how to say it in a sympathetic way, but it was like the order. It was like a normalcy. Yeah, that was their normalcy. It was not fair, it was not just, but that was just how things went back in the day. Because back in the day, there was a lot of fear of power, a lot of fear of order, and a lot of fear of God. Like you just mentioned God, and people would just believe you from the get-go. Like God was used as I say, religion is used as a political tool. So they used the form of God to instill fear to people, to make them, to obey, and do all these things. And remember, every legal structure is required for our societies to live in a structured way. We need order. We do need order. But nowadays, of course, we have the normal legal systems. But back in the day, they didn't have some legal systems. They had God as the legal system to make people listen to the rules, follow the rules, and all of these things, right? So same story, just changed a little bit compared to now and back then. So this now brings us to the creation of the earth, right? They create the earth in Africa. As I say, it was not the word Africa, but it was, the original word names. And then Eden was created. Eva, Adam, we know the story. Everybody knows the story. And then there was the huge flood, right? The event of the huge flood, we get it from the Torah and the Bible as, the Noah story, whereby Noah had a vision that he had to build an ark and get all the animals in there, right? So because we do know Africa is the place of animals and the place that is full of vegetation, so the stories, they really match the environment, the region, the place. And actually all the scholars, they agree on this, right? So Then the Babylon scripture is not like a Bible for the Babylon, but it's like scriptures, like different stories, right, that are telling the same thing of the flood. We do have the Quran also talking about the flood. So we do have all the scriptures, the original scriptures, talking about this flood that wiped out everybody, and they had to restart all over again, right? Fine. So Noah, miraculously, he's the only one who's saved. It was him and his 3 sons and their wives, right? So this is a family of 8 people, right, who survive. And from Africa, we do know from the scriptures that the boat, the ark, was pushed all the way up to the region of Turkey, which is Turkey today, right? But as I said, in the Bible, it's using the old names, but because these books are taking different names, so I'm just going to use the modern name that we all know, right? So the ark was pushed and it landed, or it arrived in the region of Turkey. So now the region of Turkey is where the story really starts, of everybody, the Israelites, the Philistines, you name everybody, right? So from there, and because back in the day, we must remember that there was inbreeding, like it was not illegal, it was not immoral as we see today. Back in the day, the families, they inbred, amongst themselves. So, this is how from that family of 8, the world really started, right? Really began. Because from the 3 brothers, we do know that one brother went back to Kush, which is back to Africa, and the other brother took the direction of Asia, and the other brother took the direction of the West. All right, so this is what happened, or how it happened. And from there, of course, then the population started. And in Kush, when we talk about Kush, we're talking about Ethiopia, Egypt, Sudan, Libya, like the northern eastern region of Africa. We also, but then back in the day, there was not North Africa, East Africa. These are new things, political divisions of nowadays. Back in the day, it was just one ground, we also do know that then from there, of course, the brother that went to Asia, then he started his own population, which we now have, the Asians, Chinese, Japanese, and, everybody. And then Kush, the Afro people. And then the West, we have, the Westerners, like the Caucasian. But we must remember that a lot of people, or even like naturally, even today, they adapt to the environment. So if you are in a cold environment, your skin will be lighter. We do know that. Even if you are Afro and you go and being close, you will become lighter. So people adapt. So this is how these changes started, in terms of how we look, how different we look, but also not just adaptation, but the inbreeding. Because as we know that when families inbreed, there's an abnormality that happens within the genetics. That is like something that can be proven, obviously, by science, right? I'm not in that field, but it's just common sense. So then Now, with the family of, because we all know we're coming from Noah, all the way to Israel, Jacob, because I want to go to Israel, how it started. So, Israel was not Israel in the beginning. His name was Jacob. So the Israelites who are Jacobites basically, because Israel received the name of Israel from God from the name Jacob, right? Because I think he wrestled with God or something, or he was chosen by God, or he had conversations with God, and then he received the name. His name was changed into Israel. But this is very important to note. Israel's grandfather, Abraham, who is also documented in the Quran, is documented in the Torah, is documented in the Bible, is documented in the notes of Babylon, is documented in the notes of Egypt. His grandfather Abraham then migrated from the region of Turkey. I'm just going to use the name Turkey so that it's easy to explain. He migrated into Philistine, right? That's the grandfather. That's Abraham. He migrates as an immigrant. He gets into Philistine, and when he arrives in Philistine, he then him and his wife, both of them were immigrants. They make children, and they make children. Isaac, right, was one of the kids that they had. And Isaac is now born in Philistine. However, because and it was not even about, you see nowadays when two immigrants, they make a child in a country, the child doesn't naturally become a citizen. They still maintain the citizenship of the parents unless the child asks to be naturalized, right? But Abraham and his wife were very adamant that their children should not be part of Philistine, which is highly indicated in the scriptures, that they refuse for their kids to be associated with the Philistines. They did not like the Philistines. They did not like their culture. They did not like their ways, their traditions, and they wanted to keep their children pure and not part of Philistine. And so when they had Isaac, they went back to their country where they had landed with the ark, like their family had landed with the ark. They went back there to find a wife for Isaac, because they said Isaac should not take a woman from Philistine, who is a Philistine. And so they got this woman, I think her name is Rebecca, and then she came also into Philistine as an immigrant. And then they made kids. They made Jacob, who is now Israel, and Esau, his brother, his twin brother. So both Israel and Esau were born in Philistine. However, because of the adamance of their parents and their grandparents, they just did not want them to mix with the Philistines or to be part of the Philistine or to be seen with the Philistine. They reinstated that we should not take or marry these people or be part of them. Yes, we live here, but we are just not going to be them. We have to maintain who we are, right? But then, as we know that the twin brother actually married a Philistine woman, he was just like, you know what, I love who I love. I'm just going to marry who I love. And then now what happened with Israel? Israel had to be in exile. He had to run out of Philistine after he had a situation. I think he murdered his twin or something, or a fight with his twin, and then he had to leave the country, the Philistine, back into Turkey. And then when he left, for some years, he went to stay with his uncle, who was the brother of his great grandmother, right? So he was in a family there, but then he lived like a slave. They misused him. They abused him. Really, they just they treated him like a slave then, even though he was in his own country and with his own maternal family. So then Israel was there for some years, and then after some time he wanted to go back into Philistine because this is where he was born, this is what he knew, even though his family did not want them to be mixed with the Philistines, right? So this is where this whole notion of, this is our promised land, God gave it to me, even though there is no lineage in terms of, citizenship, because back in the day, the parents refused, the grandparents refused for them to be associated as Philistines, but by birth, right of birth, he was born in Philistine. And we also do know that I think it was Abraham who bought some land in Philistine to bury his wife. So there was some land that they bought with money to bury Sarah. So they do have also not only these kids being born there, Israel and Esau, but there was also some money that was spent towards land, for burial, right? So of course we do know that when you buy land, it's your land because you bought it with your money, right? So coming into today, because we do know that Israel has been, obviously has placed, its control over Philistine, and the Philistines are like, this is our land, you cannot treat us like this. We have always been here. We've always lived here. We didn't have a history like the Israelites, who came through Abraham and, Isaac. When you guys came, when your grandparents came, we were already here. So this is our land, right? So why can't we stay in our land? Why are we being mistreated in our land, right? And then Israel has this message that God promised me, I'm the chosen one. Like everybody else did back in the day, they thought they were the chosen ones, And so, however, there is also another political arm or political muscle, because we must remember that when the Jews were mistreated by Hitler, right, they had nowhere to go. So the West then backed them up into finding them a home or finding them a place. So they had to help them, find a way they could situate themselves. So they also had, their financial backing, the muscle from the West, to help them settle into a land, and also there was this message of I'm the chosen one. With the chosen one, this land was promised to us. This is the promised land, and so of course, when it comes to the messages of this is our land. This is why I started with how I explained that everybody else who wanted to take land back in the day could just say that they were chosen by God and they could take it, like the Persians did with Babylon. They just came in. So this is how the kingdoms were taken. It was at times obviously by war, coming in and just wiping up everybody through war, through sword. Or they could come in, as religion and missionaries and say, we're preaching the gospel with the chosen people. You must give your things to us because we're special, So this is where we are. Now coming into astrology, let's start. Now, Philistine was born in a foreign country. So this is important for the astrology. It was not born in its own land. It was not born in Philistine. It was born in Algeria, which is a foreign country. Now, we do know that when a parent gives birth into a foreign country, it will show in the chart as it shows in the chart of Palestine. So now I'm going to go to the current name Palestine because of the changes in the chart. So in 1988, Philistine became Palestine. As how we know it. It was born on the 15th of November with a Leo ascendant. However, being a Leo ascendant, of course, we do know about Leos. They show the original kingdom, the original legacy, the original royalty. That's what Leo is about. There is a royal blood in you. There's a legacy in you. There is a rulership that you're born with, right? And we know that Israel is a Virgo ascendant, meaning that they have had to work for what they have. They have had to work for what they own. They have had to work, just work to get by, right? And of course, by the story that I just told you guys in terms of history, which was important for me to show or to talk about, to tie up to the astrology, because then we can see why Israel is a Virgo ascendant. What do we know about Virgo ascendants? We know them about being workaholics, or about relating to work, that they have to work for their things that they own, that they have to work hard, they have to endure lots of challenges in their lives. This is what a Virgo is about, enduring lots of challenges, lots of obstacles, because the 6th house of Virgo is about obstacles, enduring lots of enemies, fighting with lots of enemies, having with lots and lots of enemies. This is what Virgo is about, and Israel is all about that. And then when it comes to Palestine, being a Leo ascendant, there's a royal blood in them, there's a legacy, there is a kingdomship in them that is natural, that is inherited, through bloodline. But because it was born in a foreign country, their independence was announced in a foreign country, in Algeria. They do have Ketu on their ascendant, and they have Rahu on the 7th house. Now, Ketu is with Lilith. What does Lilith tell us? It's telling us tainted identity. There's a tainted identity because, as we can see, they born in the foreign country. They couldn't show their independence in their own country. So that is a tainted already. It's a tainted legacy, because Leo, tainted legacy. But at the same time, because it's Ketu, it is an ancestral legacy that is lost, because we do know Ketu is about missing, distancing, things that are not of normalcy. And having that Ketu, it gives that legacy that is coming from ancestors, but then it is lost. It must be regained. It must be regained, because Ketu, that's what it's telling us. It must be regained. It's lost, its legacy, but it is tainted because of the Lilith. And of course, we can see with the wars how tainted even the image of Palestine, how it's tainted in our world right now because of the Lilith. Even in a person, as I have explained in many synastry analysis that I've made, if you have Lilith on your ascendant or on your public image, you will be tainted. If it's in your 10th house, your public image will be tainted. Through your profession, you'll be tainted. People will say controversial things about you. And if it's on your ascendant, how you look, if there's something controversial about it, even your behavior, there could be something controversial about it. And voila, it's showing again with Palestine as well, like I always say when it comes to the astrology. Now, Palestine has moon in the 6th house, and not just in the 6th house, but also in Capricorn, which is dire for moon, because moon is about nurturing. This is where we get our food. This is where we get our milk. This is where we get our care, our nurturing. And for them, it is in the 6th house. What is the 6th house? It's the house of enemies. It's the house of problems. It's the house of debt. It's the house of obstacles left, right, and center. It's the house of litigation. And all of that, it is in Capricorn, which is again another anemic sign for moon. This is where moon cannot show his emotions, or cannot even show the nurturing, the care, or receive it. The emotions are dried up. In Capricorn, the emotions are dried up. This is where moon gets to feel nothing because of the obstacles and the problems and the responsibilities that it has. It has no time to cry, no time to somber. There are just problems that are piling up day and night, and it's in the 6th house of these things, of these obstacles. Now, it is also with vertex. As I've been saying throughout the starting time of this YouTube channel, vertex is a point of where your life will change. And now with the overlays, it is important to note that the moon of Palestine, which is also with the vertex, it's overlaying in the 5th house of Israel. This is where we talk about our future, because children, right? So basically there's a link of the future of Israel with the problems and the obstacles and the litigations and the challenges and the enemies of Palestine. And at the same time, it is conjunct with the Lilith of Israel. What is Lilith again? I just mentioned it. It's where your identity will be tainted, the way everything you touch will be tainted. And for them, it is where the future of Israel is, right? But we can also see that they have Jupiter in the 10th house. Jupiter is supposed to give luck. Jupiter is supposed to give abundance. Jupiter is supposed to give everything good, particularly for the Leo ascendant. But what is the problem here? The problem is that the Jupiter is a retrograde. What does it mean? It means you have to redo, revise, trying your luck again and again and again, failing again and again and again before you reach the abundance of Jupiter. People with retrograde Jupiter, they have a hard time achieving things that are promised by Jupiter, because for them it is to redo, relearn. Because what does Jupiter teach? It teaches us philosophy, law, patience, wisdom, right? And it brings luck. But then when it's retrograde, it means you have to redo, go back, try again, repeat your steps, retrace your steps before you reach this level. Quite important. Whoa. And another factor here is that Palestine has Saturn, Uranus, Neptune in the 5th house. As I just said, 5th house, it tells our future. This is where our offspring, comes from. Our children, they carry our future. They carry our lineage. They carry our ancestors forward, right? And when you have Saturn in the 5th house for the Leo ascendant, you are bringing responsibilities or hardships regarding the children and the future of the country. And we can see what's been happening to the children of Palestine, Gaza, their youth is being wiped out. Because there's also Uranus here, sudden things, sudden changes, electricity hitting down. What is electricity in our terms? It can also be fire in terms of firearms. That's electrical bullets. We can see all of that going through the youth of Gaza. Palestine, Gaza, well. We can also see Neptune. What does Neptune mean in terms of the 5th house? It means that kids are going missing. There is unclear future here. The future is not certain. There is a coverage. When it comes to the future, it's not clear because Neptune brings unclarity or inclarity wherever it lands. And here it's landing directly on the future and the youth of the country. But on top of that, they have Chiron in the 11th house, facing the 5th house. Chiron is wounding. They are wounding towards the future, children, offspring, but at the same time also profits, gains, friendships, network circles. They're just wounding all around. And on top of that, it is a retrograde, meaning that it's a wounding that heals and goes back to wounding again. It heals, it goes back to wounding again. It does not stop. There is no once we wounding, then we heal. No, for them it's retrograde. It's just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Hence, it explains why it's taking a lot of decades for this war to still be going on. And at the same time, they do have their fortune. Now, this is where the hope comes in. They have their fortune in the 11th house, meaning that there are friends in terms of countries. We mean that there are other countries that will be friends or are friends to Palestine who will help when it comes to fortune of like giving wealth, giving money, giving opportunities to Palestine. But there's a huge problem. What is the problem? It is because fortune is approaching the Chiron, and the Chiron is retrograde, meaning that even if the friends, the other countries like South Africa, Brazil, all of these countries that are helping Palestine, they are being blocked. They go forward and then there's a blockage because of the Chiron that is retrograde going towards it, cutting it, like wounding themselves as well. So this chart of Palestine, it is telling a sad story of what is happening. And they have something which is important to note. They have Venus in the second house. Now, Venus in the second house is comfortable, meaning that there's an opportunity for them to make resources, to have resources. However, they will have to work very, very hard to attain those resources. Why? Because Venus here is debilitated in Virgo, in the Virgo sign. We do know that Venus in Virgo gets debilitated, meaning that somebody has to put 100 times more of the work just to receive the Venus things. Venus here is working hard and overtime. So the country is not, it's like the country's chart is really sad and is showing exactly what is happening. And sometimes you wish you could just have the leader at the time not announce the independence on the state. Maybe the 14th could have been better, or even a few hours before could have been better. But because this was happening, because the country was born on this date, it was born with this exact chart. They do have Sun in the third house, but Sun even itself, it is debilitated in Libra. Now, what does Sun mean in Libra? It means that it's no longer feeling kingly. And Sun for Palestine is the ascendant Lord. So all the power, all the glory of being a king has been stripped down. Now the king must mingle with everybody else and work hard using its own muscle, because the third house is about using your own muscle to make a living for yourself. And this is the third house representing the ascendant Lord, meaning that the ascendant Lord, Palestine, must use its own muscle to build its own country. But it's difficult because it's debilitated. The king does not have his robe. The king does not have his crown, cannot wear his crown. You cannot in Libra. What does it mean? It means you must collaborate with people. You must no longer act like a king. You must act like everybody else. You must form relationships with people. You must go out there and try to have contracts, try to have businesses with people. Forget that you're a king. Forget it. Forget it. Even the Ketu on the ascendant is indicating that you must lose yourself. Just lose your ego, lose your pride, lose your crown. Just lose it and go out and work hard with your own muscles. But because it's in Libra, you're working with other people. You need partnerships here. You need contracts because there's Mercury. You need nuclear bombs or things or power because it's Pluto. You need arms, because remember the third house is also about arms, meaning that now the king, not only the king is working, but the king must also carry a gun, an arm, a weapon, because it's Pluto. So this king has not only been just stripped of its crown, but it must also now act as if it's Mars. And at the same time, as a businessman, negotiate, use Mercury here. So the best way for Palestine is to really just negotiate, form partnerships, forget the this is my land. Negotiate now. You're the king. You're born as the king. It's indicated in the chart, but then it is a lost kingdom because Ketu is here. And yes, it's ancestral because Ketu is indicating ancestors, but then it's tainted. It's with Lilith. And you are told to go out and use your muscle to gain a living. Use negotiations, use partners, find weapons. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one. And at the same time, their Venus, which is debilitated, is also indicating working hard, very hard to get money. Very, very hard. And at the same time, it's opposite Mars in the 8th house. Mars in the 8th house is in its original house, so meaning that everything is happening suddenly, accidents, injuries, war, everything that we see is happening empowered by Mars, and it is formed also on spirituality and endings because it's in Pisces. Oh, wow. It's so amazing how you can see a life of a person or a country from their chart. I've already spoken about the chart of Israel when I did the Israel and the Iran chart, but it is important to note again, their ascendant is what? Virgo, meaning that they have to work hard to gain their identity. But even that, their identity is not settled, is unclear because they have Neptune on their ascendant. And the people don't see Israel, for who they are because there's a clouding that is clouding Israel because of the Neptune. I spoke about their fortune, their Jupiter being in the 4th house, meaning that their fortune comes from themselves, their homeland, but then at the same time, because their Jupiter is also retrograde, they also had to redo things, restructure their belief systems because it's in Sagittarius, and also rely on foreign things, foreign lands, because it is in, where's the home? It's in a foreign land, in Sagittarius. As I said, they migrated. It's indicated in the chart that their home is in the foreign land, Sagittarius. They have the moon, which is in its own sign in the 11th house, bringing them lots and lots of friends, bringing them so much support. But at the same time, it's support that is fluctuating because moon in the 11th house, it will show friends that are fluctuating even though it's in own sign. And at the same time, it's with Saturn, meaning that there would be and Pluto, there would be transformations with some support and friends, whereby friends become enemies, enemies become friends, But at the same time, there's stability that this Saturn brings. So within that fluctuation, Saturn brings stability, which is very needed, which has been helping Israel. Even with their profits, their money, it could, fluctuate, but then it's growing bit by bit and being stable. They have Venus, they have Uranus in the 10th house. Now, Venus is perfect here. Perfect here. Because you do need Venus in order for your image to be harmonized, to be taken nicely, to be accepted by the public. And Venus, is bringing that beauty, whereby when people talk about Israel, they say, oh yes, they are the chosen ones. Because they have Venus that is purifying their public image to people. And it is in Gemini in a friendly sign. However, it is with Uranus, meaning that it is changing all the time suddenly. it just changes. How people view Israel, it changes because of the Uranus instability in how people view you is in a public image, 10th house. Even with their dharma and their direction is also shown here to be changing. They do have Sun, Vertex, and Mercury in the 9th house, which is absolutely perfect in the 9th house because then it shows some authority, that they are a country that has authority, that has, that stern authority when they come into the room. But at the same time, the Sun is in Taurus, in a sign that is not necessarily acceptable of Sun. So what does it mean here? It means that they could appear as too arrogant and irritating to other people, even if they are authoritative, but their authority could be seen as, instead abusive, or it could be seen instead as greed because of the Taurus sign. Now, when it comes to communication, they are convincing, they are diplomatic. They know how to speak, they know how to talk to people, they know how to convince people because Mercury is in Taurus, making their speech be so convincing and, just saying the right things at the right time to the right people. And they're using that because this is the vertex. This is where their point changes. So their chart is giving them huge muscles. Yes, they have problems, but they have other measures that are helping them as a country. So both countries, obviously Israel is able to use or maximize their positives in the chart, whereas I think Palestine has not reached that point whereby they need to look at their chart and see way to maximize, which we will be doing in part 2, where I look at both deeper countries, how they can maximize their points and what they need to minimize that is causing them problems. Obviously, we can already see with the side of Palestine. But let's meet again on the part 2. For now, I'm going to say thank you. This is Mita. It's Mita speaking, your astrology journalist, because I break the news before the news happen. A bientôt. Ciao.